As the Honorable Prime Minister has set out, India aspires to be a $5 trillion economy by 2024-25. And for this to happen, the role of the small and medium enterprises is significant. Because not only do we want to increase the GDP to $5 trillion, but we also want to create significant jobs for the really young population that we have in India. India is, at a sweet spot at this point in time with a very young population that can actually come into the labor force and thereby contribute to its productivity. Therefore, job creation becomes a very, very important imperative for India. And here's where what we need to recognize is that it's small firms that grow to become medium ones that create a lot of jobs and also enable productivity in the economy. For instance, if you take a firm that starts out, let's say, with about 5-10 employees, when it grows to become 100, 200, or maybe 1,000 employee firm, then it creates that many number of jobs. And jobs is important because jobs create purchasing power in the hands of people, and that drives consumption, which itself is then important for firms to invest. And the document that the Office of Chief Economic Advisor puts out, which is the economic survey before the federal budget every year, in that survey we actually talked about investment as the key driver for this goal of the $5 trillion economy, and consumption being the force multiplier. And for that investment to happen, therefore, the small and medium enterprises play a critical role. Now, in India, unlike in some of the other advanced economies, our firms, especially some of these small firms, are not growing enough. And the reason for that is many of our policies are incentivizing these small firms, which is fine. But the key idea that we've advocated in the economic survey is that much like a parent protects or basically nurtures the young, similarly governments also need to be nurturing young firms, because when the firm is learning how to do business and is sort of going through the ropes, that's when it needs the maximum support. But if you think about a firm that has actually been in existence for 20-25 years, knows how to do business, such firms may not need as much hand-holding. It's the young firms that need hand-holding. And one of the credos of economics is that resources are scarce, and so they need to be directed well. And the case that we are making is that these need to be directed to young firms to enable them to grow. And here's where many of our policies, because they are size-based, they create a perverse incentive for firms to remain small. And to explain this, I'll just use a simple example from everyday life. When kids learn how to bicycle, we give them those support wheels to be able to, so that they don't fall when they're learning. So think about a young rider. The young rider, relies on those support wheels to not fall. But if suppose the parent says that these support wheels are there for life, except for a few self-driven kids, the average kid may not ever learn to become an independent biker. And what works with parenting works equally well sometimes with, oftentimes in fact with government policy as well, that providing these support policies without a sort of a threshold of age gives this perverse incentive for firms to remain small. For instance, if the policy is for firms that have, let's say, a few $1,000s, maybe $200,000 in sales, when the firm reaches about, let's say, $180,000 in sales, then it starts thinking, if I grow beyond $200,000, then whatever benefits I'm enjoying now, I will not get it, and therefore the incentive is for the firm to start maybe a new firm, and thereby not grow in size and create the benefits that come from economies of scale. So the important policy change that is required is to focus on incentivizing young firms, so firms that are below a certain age, rather than firms that are necessarily small. In other words, protect the young, nurture the young, so that they can grow and thereby contribute wealth both to themselves and to the economy, because nothing benefits more, the promoter of the firm or the owner of the firm than the firm growing big, because when the firm grows big, he or she makes large profits, and in that process also does national service by providing jobs for the economy.